All right, so this is the room here at Shades of Green. Say hello, everybody. We've got on a little bit early while we're waiting for the commercials to finish. Our guests, Jennifer Taylor and Chris Brooks, thank you guys for coming on today. I appreciate it. So today's topic is choice, right? What are we going to do with the utilities and all the different legislation, and what's our future going to look like? And you guys are going to cover some good details. All right. What do you think? What do you expect to cover, Jennifer, when we go back on air?
Well, I want to
30 seconds. Folks.
Talk about the initiative and talk about what the structures are right now. They're starting to analyze what things could look like if the initiative passes again in 2018.
Perfect. Great. All right. Looks like the commercials are coming to an end. And thanks again, you guys, for joining us.
Sure. Thanks for having us.
All right. We're going live.
Welcome back to Shades of Green on KDWN 720 AM in Las Vegas. Our show is produced by Green Alliance of Nevada. Our sponsor is NV Energy, and I'm your host, Stan Hanel. Our guests today are Assemblyman Chris Brooks from District 10 and Jennifer Taylor, Chair of the Innovation and Technology Renewable Energy Development Working Group on the Governor's Committee on Energy Choice. So just before the break, we were talking about the Energy Choice Initiative that was voted on during the November 2016 election. Just before the 2017 legislation, and that was a petition that was put out to voters. They had to gather grassroots signatures for it, and in an initiative process, voters have to vote on it twice. So that vote will be coming around again on November 2018 to ratify the decision. The initial vote passed 72 to 28, and there were a lot of things going on, a lot of volatility in the utility industry during that year, so that people may not have really dug deep into what that entails. So the governor did call together a Governor's Committee on Energy Choice. There's 25 members in it and 5 working groups that were established, and they've been going over those details so that to try to make them clear, so that when people vote again, they'll know what they're getting into. So basically, the initiative, it has several clauses to it. This will involve a change to our state constitution to change the monopoly model of NV Energy. The implementation clause in there says, not later than July 2023, which is 5 years out, the legislature shall provide by law for provisions consistent with this act to establish an open, competitive retail electric utility or electric energy market to ensure that protections are established for safe, reliable, and competitively priced electricity, and but not limited to provisions that reduce costs to consumers, protect against service disconnections and unfair practices, and prohibit the grant of monopolies, exclusive franchise for the generation of electricity. The legislature need not provide for the deregulation of transmission or distribution of electricity in order to establish a competitive market consistent with this act. So basically, utilities like NV Energy would lose their monopoly status for generation of electricity, but still retain the monopoly status for distribution and transmission of electricity down to folks' homes. So they would become like the telecommunications companies. They would be carriers of electricity, and you would basically get 2 bills, one from your service provider, your energy provider, and one from NV Energy for being the conduit for that energy. So Jennifer, you've been involved with this task force. You're the chair of one of the 5 working groups, and can you tell us how that's going with those discussions?
Sure. One of the things too, Stan, just let me back up on what you were talking about with the actual initiative. One of the important key pieces of that is paragraph 3C, which also says that that initiative would not let the deregulation interrupt any of our legislation on energy and the environment, such that 405, for example, couldn't be interrupted.
Right.
So that's one of the things that my working group looks at, is how do we make sure that those really important energy policies and environmental policies like rooftop solar, like a renewable portfolio standard, like energy efficiency. How do we make sure that those are still going to be part of a market should this pass again in 2018? And again, you read a really key piece of it, which is that everybody is supposed to get retail choice, everybody, under that constitutional amendment. This is a really unique way to try to open up a retail market. It's never been done by constitutional amendment, and we've already flagged some issues that are going to have to be looked at. For example, what does it do to our rural co-ops? You know, I don't think were initially part of the intent of the drafters in coming up with that language. What do you do for people who live in a situation where they don't control their meter? How do you allow them to have that constitutional choice if you're in an apartment?
Right.
Because it's not a statute, it's a constitutional right that would be created. So it's a really tricky process, and the committee that I'm on has been trying to dig into a myriad of issues. There's 5 working groups covering the construction of a market, consumer protections. What is it going to cost Nevada consumers when NV Energy has to divest of its generation assets?
Right. They call the stranded assets.
Stranded assets, right. There's one to talk about generation and transmission, and then there's my renewable energy working group. The committee is made up of, as you noted, 25 folks from electeds to our chief regulator, Chairman Reynolds, to a lot of the big industries in the state. It includes the 2 main proponents of the initiative, and we've been working through sort of what does this all look like. Right now, all the working groups are finalizing their own recommendations, and then we're going to have a set of recommendations come out of the Public Utility Commission as well, because given all of their expertise and given all of their assets and ability to conduct analysis with their staff, it was decided that we would send a piece of this work to them to come to us with recommendations. So they are just finishing up 2 weeks of workshops. There were, thousands of pages of comments filed. And we've heard from, I watched a lot of those PUC hearings. We've heard from a lot of folks talking about, what could this market look like. We've heard from some of the retail providers saying how they're really excited to come in and offer products. We've also heard that they will probably offer that remotely, or that they're able to offer it remotely. So we need to, from out of state. And so we need to make sure that, again, that the broad policies of the state having, and as well the promises of the initiative itself, which included creation of jobs. We have to make sure that however this market gets structured, it's going to meet both of those things. I have a meeting tomorrow for my working group. We are going to finalize some recommendations, and then all the working group chairs will be in front of the committee in March, along with the recommendations from the PUC to move forward.
So the public will start to see those recommendations in March and can start evaluating what the ideas will be before the vote comes up in November. So there'll be about a 6-month period where there will be coverage and people can weigh in on the actual details of the issue.
Well, they can analyze the details. There's been an opportunity for them to weigh in on the details through the PUC and through the committee. And the public is always welcome to come and weigh in on the details.
There's video you can see.
Absolutely.
And I think is there a recorded video of some of that as well.
If you go to the Governor's Office of Energy, under the Programs tab, you can pull down and see every meeting we've had.
And what's that website? Do you remember?
I think it's just nv.goe.nv. But, it's going to be an interesting shift, because we already have this fantastic set of low rates and a state policy that drives renewables. So we just want to make sure that we create the right market with the right frame, if it's opened up, to continue that.
And we'll probably have either or both of you back in March to go over this again. This will be an ongoing issue that we'll be talking about on the radio show. Thank you for listening. Keep it green.